Good afternoon to all participants of this second DOST SEI Project Star International Conference. Welcome to our second plenary session. I am Dr. Maricel Gomez from the Leyte Normal University, and I will be your moderator for this session. May I remind the participants that if you have questions after each plenary session, kindly type them in the Q&A section of the Zoom. At this point, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our second plenary speaker. Dr. Longshan Wong is a senior research scientist and the co-director of the Learning Sciences and Innovations Research Program, Office of Education Research, National Institute of Education, Singapore. His research interests lie in mobile and seamless learning, computer-assisted language learning, computer-supported collaborative learning, and in service teachers' professional development. He has more than 15 years of experience spearheading school-based research in the stated areas. To date, he has published close to 40 SSCI or SCI Index journal papers and won 9 Best or Outstanding Papers awards at various conferences. He bagged the APSCE Distinguished Researcher Award in 2015 and is the immediate past president of the Asia Pacific Society for Computers Education. He is a former associate editor of IEEE Transactions on Learning Technologies and is currently a managing editor of Asia Pacific Journal of Education, and both are SSCI Index journals. Participants, please join me in welcoming our second plenary speaker, Dr. Longshan Wong. Dr. Wong?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Hi. I hope so. And let me share the. Oh. All right. So you can hear me? Hi.
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. So thanks for joining this session. I hope that we'll find that we have some nice things for you to exchange with you and hope and hear from you of how we think. But first of all, let me talk about a little bit my background. That was me in 1974 with my father. Can you recognize where this place was? Actually, I can't recall the exact name, but that place used to be next to your Nino Aquino International Airport. Yeah, that theme park. I just forgot the name. Yeah, but I was there. And so what happened was that because my mother was a Filipino Chinese before she married my father in Malaysia. Yeah. But now I'm based in Singapore. And then if you look at this bottom right photo, that photo was taken in Baguio. Yeah, I was there in 1980, so which means that actually during my early years, I had been in Manila and a few other places in Luzon for every 3 to 4 years. Yeah, but then the little boy on the left, actually not my younger brother. Here's my cousin, and he's actually the son of my mother's younger brother. And then next one, that one. Okay, this one. This one you can tell that I'm from Ta Lake. We're next to Ta Lake. Is it correct? Yeah, and that's my younger brother. And in 2003, that was not my first time visit, but I was there in Intramuros. So with all this connection there, and then I used to be also visiting schools and visiting universities in Philippines. And I hope that I can have a little bit more of understanding with both of you and then see how it goes for our talk. And then here's our agenda here. Well, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about Singapore's experience in from this pandemic, and actually before this pandemic, we have done something, and which made us, the readiness is there for us to make all this work. And so we have home-based learning in Singapore in the early stage of the pandemic, which was early last year. And after that, I actually jump up, I look at more general framing of what 21st century is about and 21st century learning is about, and how we talk about when teaching and learning meet technology. Yeah, can technology make a difference? We're really trying to implement 21st century learning. And I'll zoom in a bit more details about blended learning, because blended learning is something that Singapore is pushing very hard right now, and see how it works because of pandemic. Actually, I would say because of the pandemic, then actually triggered this blended learning movement in Singapore. And Singapore's readiness and adaptability in responding to the pandemic. We already have ICT integration, but now pandemic actually accelerated the whole thing, and ICT integration as well as pedagogical reform. And finally, I'll look into a little bit more about my own research niche, because my own research niche, I have been doing seamless learning for almost 15 years, doing research in this area, including science and also other subjects. So this seamless learning, they're conceptually overlapping with blended learning. I will talk about how seamless learning can inform blended learning and how this can inform your science learning and even STEM as a whole. Yeah. Okay, first of all, we look at this when we're fighting COVID-19 in early times and what have been happening in Singapore schools in early periods. In early February and March 2020 last year, we started with a few imported cases and triggered local clusters and local infections under control in March. We also increased our imported cases. So what happened back then was life going on as usual. We have been measuring temperature and safe distancing, but then we didn't start to reinforce wearing masks back then. Yeah. And from schooling as usual, self-distancing, temperature taking, and cancel major events and also core curriculum activities. Yeah, student bodies all stopped working, stop operating. And by the end of March, we had started to talk about this. I think the government started to think about, okay, something is going to happen next. So they announced that they're going to experiment home-based learning. And what happened was that we tried it once. On the last Wednesday of March 2020, only one full day at home, students all staying at home from primary school, secondary school to, we call it junior college, it's something equivalent to high school. All students stay at home, all teachers stay at home and do this home-based learning, which are going to talk about it a bit more details. So the government announced that, okay, this will be once every week. But right after we finished one, we did one terms of experiment, then we moved on to April, and that becomes a huge cluster of COVID-19 clusters in foreign workers dormitories, which is a few hundred cases to 1,000 cases per day. During that period of time is considered a big amount. But the community cases were still a bit small. And then we started talking about a very, very serious lockdown. We called it circuit breaker. I think in Philippines, I think you call it enhanced community quarantine. I mean, something similar. The measures might slightly different, but basically the idea is lockdown. Yeah. So because of that, of course, everybody had to stay home. So we have full HBL. We call it FHBL or full HBL. Stay home all the while from April to early May. And we supposedly have mid-year, usually on normal on those normal years, we have mid-year vacation in June, but we shifted 1 month earlier to May back then. And that means that we're supposed to reopen our school in the second half of the year in July, then we shifted earlier in June. Because back then, by June, circuit breaker measure was over. Yeah, local infections under control, so we have post-circuit breaker phase 1 and later phase 2. Yeah, okay. So that's why in school, we're back to school. And we still have home-based learning, but it's not now. It's not during that period of time. And by end of June, fully back to, I mean, in June, we have a mixture of back to school. It means that every week there may be 2 or 3 days at home-based learning and 2 or 3 days back to school. Yeah, and by end of June, fully back to school and strict prevention measures, but fully back to school. Yeah, everybody is supposed to wear masks all the while. So that was until June, but then the story is not over yet. Yeah, because in this year, we have actually 2 more times of full home-based learning. Once was in May, and the other one was in September. Only 2 weeks every time. So that was where it started. school implement 1 day of home-based learning a week in March. And then later, we came out with a full home-based learning nationwide, 1 full month. While parents are maybe they're working from home, while the kids, they're actually studying from home. So this is the slogan by our Ministry of Education called Stay Home, Still Stay Curious. Yeah, we can still stay curious, we can still learn well if we do it right, even when we stay home. So what happened was that all the schools, they're supposed to follow the original class schedule. So for today, the first session, 8 a.m., let's say studying English, the second session, second period, taking science or whatsoever, you follow exactly the same time slot, except that students are learning from home and teachers are teaching from home. So we're using Zoom. Yeah, so that was what happened. And you can see even every day, they're still at the school on normal days, every morning they're supposed to, we have this morning assembly, and students supposed to sing national anthem, and also the principal will address the students. But then during the full home-based learning, we're doing the same, except that everybody doing this at home. Yeah, and also recite the national pledge. Okay. And there's even one teacher experimented these are so-called virtual or online invigilation, where they are taking a class session quiz, while the students are supposed to do their quiz at home, and that the teacher actually doing invigilation through Zoom. So that's what the teacher has been experimenting. Even for physical education classes, we can do it at home. Yeah, we need to redesign some of the activities, and then the teachers actually kind of demonstrating and giving instructions live from school. Yeah, while kids doing this at home. Okay. And then what happened? The question was that, of course, we will still have a small number of students in Singapore who didn't have this kind of facilities or equipment available. Yeah, those are from lower SES, socioeconomic status household. So what happened was that we had some of these volunteers. They asked for and asked for donations of those second-hand laptops. Okay, so they go and service it, and they install new latest version of software, including Windows and Office and whatsoever, Microsoft Office and whatsoever, and give it to those needy students. Yeah, so that was what happened, that we try to fill the gap. And also, really, there are some students who really couldn't get their own laptop, or couldn't have even have their own laptop. They didn't have this internet access from home. They can still go back to school. There are always about 20% of teachers get back to school, even during the circuit breaker period. Yeah, so that students will need to return to school either because they didn't have the internet access, or because their parents are actually working in those are essential fields that they need to get back to work anyway. Yeah. So for kids, they didn't have any parents to be taking care of them at home, so they have to get back to school. So there are about, every school there are about 50 to 100 students had to get back to school every day. So that we still cater for it. So this is how we actually felt the gap during that period of time. So it sounds like all these things are just very emergency measures or this, but then what teachers did was that the teacher were able to design all these classes with all this good mix of activities, like from explicit teaching to student-centered learning. All these are good mixture, and such as we have this example that all these different activities all packed into 1 or 2 lessons. Yeah, this thing could happen. I wouldn't say all of them, maybe different combinations of them into different lessons. Yeah, so these are the things I can do. I can go back. I'm coming back to this slide later when we try to give under a different framing. To explain what this thing happens. So while you can see that there are some direct instructions, there are modeling, discussion, research and exploration, collaborative tasks, practice and review, assessment, and all this. So what happened? You see is this, that we also have this learning management system available, the e-learning platform available, which I'm going to explain later as well, to make all these things happen. Yeah. Okay, so this is one possible lessons where they use this escape room idea. The teacher designed in this way. You can see these are some of the heading, which are, again, I'm coming back to this heading later, but essentially you see, you start with activate learning, promote thinking and discussion, facilitate demonstration of learning, and finally monitor and feedback. Now, you don't have to always follow this order, but this is 4 essential activity types that are going to happen. From discussion, you look at the second row, discussion, direct instruction, practice and review, assessment, and go back to assessment and discussion. So in case you don't know what's meant by synchronous and asynchronous, I suppose most teachers, most educators know what it means. In case you don't know, so benefit those. Synchronous means that there are activities that are supposed, or teachers or students, or maybe a group of students that's supposed to come together at the same time to carry out this activity, such as a small group discussion or teachers are explicit teaching. While asynchronous activity could be something like this, say for example, forum discussion. Forum discussion, one student posts something, and then the next student can come back to reply to this posting maybe 1 or 2 days later. So that's called asynchronous learning. So we have this mixture of synchronous and asynchronous learning. Okay, so the question is that can we really go far? HBL is just a quick fix or what? Yeah. So of course we know all these attitudes from teachers, students, even parents. They have all this problem. Like from teachers' point of view, HBL or online learning just a quick fix. Let's get back to old normal as soon as we can. Yeah, that's one possible consideration. And also the kids are not learning under my nose. Okay, I'm really worried about it. How about the student? Can students be so self-regulated, especially for younger kids? And do they have the ability? They have the ability to self-learn? Also, no face-to-face. F2F stands for face-to-face. No face-to-face, and yet need to do synchronous collaborative learning. Can it work? Such as small group discussion, no face-to-face, through Zoom, maybe a breakout room. Can the student do well? Cope with it? Yeah. So that's something all teachers always worry about this. Yeah. And also, I can't even finish the syllabus. If you want to spend more time on making all this technology, get everything ready, prepare for this, and also juggle with all these technical problems, all this. And also, I need to prepare, redesign the curriculum, redesign the lessons. All this take time. So even on normal days when I do face-to-face all the while, I can't finish the syllabus. So they want efficiency first. So that's what many teachers will be thinking of. And from parents' point of view, during circuit breaker period, I need to do work from home too. So I cannot take care of my kids or watching my kids learning while at the same time I'm doing my own work. So that's always an issue. Yeah, parents worry. And also from parents' point of view, this looks nothing like classroom learning. And parents, most of parents, of course, they came from the time that they all went through classroom learning, and then, okay, this is something that I did well during classroom. I'm familiar with this. I think classroom learning is the best. So without classroom learning, I don't think my kids will learn well. So we can see all this kind of resistance, all this hesitation, all these reservations. So these are the issues we are going to address. But instead of all these issues, our government, Ministry of Education, they really want to push blended learning. So this is something we're going to talk about more. And then came to the end of our circuit breaker, but then how about HBL or even blended learning? Can they become a part of a new educational normal, or we have to go back to old normal? Yeah. Okay. So this is something that I've been juggling during that period of time, about June 2020. Okay. So also, this is the point I just raised just now. In May and September 2021, the school went back to full home-based learning twice for shorter periods, only 2 weeks each time. That was really because of the surge of the local cases. But now it seems that we're going to move on with our classroom learning continue. Well, I think in December there will be a holiday, full months of holiday, and we come back January on time for a new academic year. Yeah, so in Singapore, the academic year is actually the same as a calendar year. Okay, so now we move a bit, we step out a bit, we look at this 21st century learning in general. So we know there are actually a set of frameworks for 21st century competencies. Over the last 2 decades, there are all these different, maybe OECD, that's international organization, and we also have countries. They come up with different versions of frameworks of 21st with slightly different emphasis across them. But that was in 2012. That was an academic paper who actually compiled about 22 different frameworks, and they found all these patterns there, like these 4 mentioned in all frameworks: collaboration, communication, ICT literacy, and social cultural skills. They think all these 4, all 22 frameworks thinking the same thing. These 4 must be there. And in many frameworks, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and develop quality products and productivity as well. But there are also a set of them in a relatively fewer frameworks. But I would say some of these terms, such as learning to learn, self-direction, planning, flexibility, adaptability, max communication, mother tongue, and science, and also history and arts. So all these are actually somehow relevant to the left-hand side and the center side. There are some of them that are actually relevant. So they are not exactly mutually exclusive. So we know all these things are important for STEM, for learning of any subject, or for grooming this kind of holistic students, for students' holistic development. We know we need all these things. Yeah, all these are beyond subject, but also very relevant to subject. So 21st century learning is about nurturing 21st CC, which I try to compile in these 3 major points: learning goals personalized, learning goals authentic, and learning goals social, which we can cover in this. Like, say, for example, all those 21st century competencies we saw in the last slide, we can roughly map into these 3, like learning goals personalized, learning to learn, self-direction, planning, flexibility, and adaptability, and also learning goals authentic, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving. That something that you do it better if you do it in an authentic learning setting. Okay, and learning goals social involve collaboration, involve communication, involve social and cultural skills. Now, next, we start with learning goals personalized. So a bit to have a look. To empower the learners, there's a level of freedom. We try to empower the learners. We let the learner have their own agency. So what are things? Learning objectives, learning pathway, learning methods, strategies, tasks, learning resources, and learning pace. The highest level, let the learners decide their own learning objectives. So I think this probably can only be happening maybe in university, or even when you're doing PhD, you can choose your own learning objective. Otherwise, there's a curriculum to follow. Yeah, so it's probably not so much about for K-12 students. You can give them a little bit of freedom. It's that within this highest level objective, you can decide on some smaller objectives. And the next thing is learning pathway. How are you going to sequence your learning process? So sometimes once the learning objective is fixed, if the student have the ability and are given the agency to decide their own learning pathway. And the third level, even if objective and pathway have to be decided by teachers, how about learning methods, learning strategies, learning tasks? Teacher doesn't have to mandate everything. They say, okay, you do this task number 1, task number 2, task number 3. Can students decide the task as long as they know the objective very well? So, and the next level, maybe the task strategies and methods are also prescribed by the teachers, but how about learning resources that can support all this when the student carrying out the task? Learning resources maybe including the learning tools you use, such as whatever software, whatever apps you want to use to carry out your learning task. Or maybe there are some learning materials, content materials, or this can support the student's learning. Or say, for example, you let the student search for internet for the resources needed. Rather than the teacher give the student resources, so just read this and don't read anything else, just read whatever I give you. So this is something that let the student decide or let the student choose. And finally, if everything have to be decided by student and as teachers, but at least learning pace, and the student decide the learning pace. So these are the different levels of learners empowerment you want to consider. What kind of level of freedom want to achieve with the student? So the issue is about learning how to learn. If the student know how to learn by themselves, then they don't have to always relying on teachers to tell them you need to do this, do this. Okay. And teachers, so this is the point that I think everybody should be familiar with as of now. teachers as learning facilitators, not as the knowledge authority. Okay? And learning goes authentic. Your teaching of what and how your students learn should not be irrelevant. You need to be relevant to the students. So not necessarily in students' current life, but at least maybe in the future. Yeah, and so beyond the four walls classroom, the world is a student's classroom. Can you actually bring the student back to the real life rather than just get the students to stick to the classroom and do everything within a clinical kind of clinical experiments, and then they don't know what the real world is. So students to observe, to apply, to solve authentic problems. We want to connectivity of learning. We connect the learning in and out classroom. We connect abstract knowledge and concrete skills. Can we do all this connectivity? So these are the considerations we want to make. And teachers to design. So so recommendation is that the teacher to design and situate students in an authentic learning context. Okay, so this is the point. And we come to learning goes social. We have community of learners. Can you build the community of learners? You build the participatory culture. Get the student to learn in a participatory manner. Yeah, rather than something like always our teacher tells students to do and students do it by themselves. So make them more participatory. Let the students work together to negotiate meaning, to collaborate, to compete, to perform peer coaching and peer evaluation, and to co-construct knowledge. So these are the things that we can do. So again, I think this is something way too familiar to you. Teachers as a guide on the side, not stage on the stage. Yeah. So now we link back to ICT. Is ICT a more natural, more natural environment for personalized, authentic and social learning? Maybe some feel that it's not necessary. Face-to-face, physical contact, physical kind of communication, physical interaction, that one is most natural. But sometimes I think if you follow the same old ways of teaching in classroom teaching in the past 100 years, past 200 years, you're not necessarily making the learning more personalized, more authentic, and more social. Now, can your IC actually help you to enhance or even to enable personalized, authentic, and social learning? Or maybe at least we make this point, augment your personalized, authentic, and social learning. Yeah. Okay. So learning goes personalized. You can see, let's say there are certain tools can help you to do this, like personal devices, your mobile device, or let's say tablet, and cloud storage. You can store everything in the cloud, and then the next time you go to another machine, you can still log on to the same place and see whatever you have stored personally. Okay. And inquiry tools. Yeah, these are learning inquiry, especially science inquiry tools, and also AI adaptive learning system. When learning goes authentic, we have mobility, mobile devices, mobile learning. We have multimedia, AR, VR, and as well as we call it mixed reality. So augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. And we even have something we call Internet of Things, and also simulations. Yeah, so these are things which can make learning goes authentic, or maybe augment the authentic learning. Okay. And finally, learning goes social. There are communication tools, there are Web 2.0, social media. We have educational big data or learning analytics. These are the things that can make learning goes social or support social learning. So these are the possibility to make ICT, to make all these things happening or make all these things work even better. So we make this example, take this example as a technology enhanced learning approach. We call it blended learning, which I think maybe most of you at least have heard this name, and some of you actually practicing it. But we also want to look at it more from an academic point of view, and also how we actually implement it in Singapore's context. Okay. So blended learning here, it means any formal education program in which student learns and at least in part through online learning. So the entire learning process is designed by instructor. Yeah, that means that it's still considered as a formal learning. We're talking about formal learning versus informal learning. Informal learning is something like, okay, you are not being covered by teachers, you are learning it by yourself. But the interesting part is that we try to distinguish between informal learning versus formal learning in informal setting. So that means that it doesn't mean that whenever you learn out of school, yeah, say for example, the teacher tell you that, okay, you go go home and do something, and that's called informal learning. That's not, because the teacher still asks you, teacher actually instruct you to do something at home, or even let's say you bring you out for a learning journey, a learning trail, go for an outdoor learning trail. Outdoor learning trail is a formal learning in informal setting. Yeah, because formal setting means school. So informal setting, it means that you're learning out of school. But learning out of school can be something like the student initiated. When the student initiated, not being prescribed by teacher and not being part of the curriculum, that's a genuine informal learning. But for formal learning in informal setting is something that the teacher tell you to do out of school, or the teacher bring you out for outdoor learning show. That's called formal learning in informal setting. So in this case, blended learning is considered as formal learning all the way. Yeah, because based on the original definition, even though there are certain parts that partly through online learning, still all these are still prescribed by the teachers. Yeah, so entire learning process is designed by instructors. So it's a purely formal learning method. But students have control over time, place, path, and or pace. Okay, so that's why you see that in those online learning, because it is not during class hours, so the student can learn at their own pace. So that's the whole idea. Yeah. Because blended learning, when I'm talking about whenever you're not learning within classroom, that are all taken place online. So this is still pretty much an ICT mediated learning method. It's different from something like, otherwise you can consider way, okay, in the past we already have for traditional conventional way of teaching. So you're doing a classroom learning, classroom teaching, and then afterwards you get the student go home to do some homework, paper, and do some homework to reinforce learning, to do some practice, or maybe to answer some questions or these things. So this also sounds like a little bit blended learning, but blended learning must be something like online learning. That part, when you're doing things at home, it must be online learning. It's not on paper and pen. Yeah, so that's also made a difference in there. So blending can be any combination of pedagogical, logistic, time, resource, and organizational considerations. So these are blendings about. So over here, what you can see here is that you're going to see this a few times, like HE Learning Design Circle. I'm going to tell you what this Facebook group is about. But this is what I've taken from Facebook group, and this Natalie Han is actually a Singapore school teacher, yeah, who shared this her own perception of what blended learning is. So blended learning comprises both lessons conducted physically in school as well as home-based learning conducted during online and offline modes. So these are design considerations, chunk and sequence learning, scaffolding learning, face-to-face and school learning, hands-on activities, and so we have a mixture, a range of different types of activities that can come together in face-to-face part, also home-based learning part. Yeah. So this is what I think of. And back to Singapore, education reform prior to the pandemic. We already have this idea of holistic education and balanced development. So we have been stopped overemphasizing on the big national examination results to decide on the next level, which school you can enter whatsoever. They make high stakes national exams lower stakes. So there are some of the measures who actually did that. Yeah, so it's not just simply looking at the national exam of the primary six, or we call it sixth grader to enter secondary school, or another one is O level and as well as A level. So we also look at others, and we also stop actually revealing the full scores, the scores of every subject you get. Instead, we're just giving grades. Yeah, grade A, grade B, grade C, or grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So that the students are not going to just rush for actually trying to fight for every single score. Now, instead, they can be more strategically know what are the things they need to do to make sure that they have more holistic kind of development in them, and also look at some of the non-academic qualities for the opportunities to enter schools that they want to enter, without just simply looking at national exams, but also look at other quality. And also, these are policy, every school a good school. To make every school good its own way, find their own niche. Yeah, so that students who are interested in this particular type of activities or this particular type of subject, and this school has happened to be focusing on this very much, then they enter this school rather than everybody have to rush to the same types of elite school, so-called. So they can bring out the best in every child. And also in secondary school, they have programs for we call it active learning and learning for life. Every secondary school, they have to find their own topic that match what they call it active learning. That means that learning with a lot of hands-on and reflection. And also learning for life, learning life skills that are beyond academic subjects. Yeah, so every school have to find a specific team. Like some school, they say, I want to do problem-based learning or project-based learning, and that is actually considered one special form of active learning. Yeah, so these are things that they are trying to make every school have find their own characteristics, unique characteristics. And also to develop teachers' design capacity, we have Academy of School Teachers being set up a few years ago. With all our teachers, our Ministry of Education school teachers, they have three levels from teachers and then senior teachers, and the highest level is called master teachers. All the master teachers being come together. They are no longer in individual school, but they are all being posted to Academy of School Singapore teachers, and then they are no longer teaching students. They are teaching teachers, or they are providing professional development to school teachers. So that's how they set up. And also we have Singapore Teaching Practice. So this is a framework to guide all the Ministry of Education teachers to design their lessons. Which are going to give you a little bit more specific details about what STP is later. And all these things are actually relevant to blended learning because we have all these settings in mind, and it makes our blended learning movement going on much more smoothly. So you can see here, activate learning, promote thinking, discussion, facilitate demonstration of learning, monitor and feedback is something I covered earlier. And this is actually part of the STP, the Singapore Teaching Practice, the framework. Only one of the dimensions. There are actually a couple of dimensions. This is one of the dimensions they're talking about. STP. And now we come to this student learning space. Student learning space, it was developed by the Education Technology Division of Ministry of Education. It was launched in 2018 and becomes kind of a learning platform that all Singapore schools, public schools, under Ministry of Education. There are about 360. We are not a big country. We have about 360 K-12 schools run by Ministry of Education. So all the schools, by 2018, all the schools, every subject, they're supposed to have at least 3 days per week using SLS. So SLS, we have a set of tools that are affording more opportunities for self-paced, self-directed, and collaborative learning among students, and also affording greater flexibility and variety for teachers' design and enactment of lesson plans. This video clip, let me try if I can show you, but before that, I think I need to do something, which is to share sound, okay, so that you can hear the sound. I will start for a short while, and then I'll check with you whether you can hear the sound, okay? Okay, share sound first. Yeah. So can you hear the music? First of all, before that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can hear the music, okay? Yeah, now I will carry on with this, okay? Yeah. Okay.
SLS is a wonderful platform that makes my learning fun and easy. The MOE library exposes me to different learning opportunities. Outside of my classroom, I can use the SLS platform anytime and anywhere to collaborate with my friends.
The interactive thinking tool in SLS is a useful tool. The tool allows the teachers to engage the students in the classroom so as to make the students' thinking visible. This will also allow the teachers to be able to address any learning gaps within the classroom. The use of SLS in the classroom, I find that students are more engaged and stay on task. In videos and interactives, I'm able to make my lessons more interesting. The variety of curriculum-aligned resources from the MOE library has helped to enhance my lesson for different learners. SLS has been constantly transforming over the years. I hope to see more features to support blended learning in the future.
So I think SLS has truly become the inclusive platform that we envisioned it to be when we first started. As a national platform, SLS reaches out to all students, including students who are overseas Singaporeans, and that has been particularly important again during the pandemic. We also have many virtual communities where teachers and students can reach out to us and other outreach channels where they can suggest enhancements and future features to be built into SLS. We take all these suggestions back. And when we come up with different solutions, we make sure that we prototype these solutions with the users through user research and user testing. We have groups of curriculum developers within CPDD itself to build up this stock of high quality resources that is curriculum aligned. These are available to students inside the SLS MOE library for them to do self-directed learning. Broad directions for SLS is set by MOE senior management to prepare the system for upcoming initiatives as well as priorities. So going forward, we also hope that to have the opportunity to work with external resource developers to supplement the resources that have been produced by MOE colleagues.
So SLS now already looks very different from SLS that we launched in 2018. It looks completely different, right? With a new UI and with a whole lot of resources. And that is a trajectory that it will go. It will continue to evolve, continue to change, continue to improve. One of the key differences will be that we are going to build artificial intelligence capabilities into the SLS. It will be a very different way of learning, very customized, very personalized. Every student will have his own pathway to follow. Right? And that's going to be really quite exciting. The other thing that we are going to do is we're going to add gamification elements into SLS to motivate students to do self-directed learning. So some of these things will be, is there a way that we can give students to personalize the look and feel for themselves? Is there a way that they can test their understanding against themselves so that they can improve over some time? As more students use it, more teachers use it, more use cases appear, we'll be able to pull in a lot of very rich data to understand how students learn and how to help them to learn better. So SLS will continue to be the centerpiece of MOE's education technology strategy. It will be where you will see most, if not all, of our innovations at tech. All of it will flow through SLS. We at the SLS team here, we look forward to sharing that with you as SLS grows and improves to serve you better.
Now, let me talk a bit more about this student learning space. What is actually a strategy, the Ministry of Education strategy behind that? So there are system development model in consideration, which is actually quite dynamic in a sense, because what happens is that they have major updates on every 3 months with new features being added, and how they decide which features to add and how they decide how to prioritize their wish list, of our new features. That's what happened. They started with addressing what teachers need. So they asked around the teachers, I would like to have this, I would like to have that. If I have this, I will work better, or this. So they address what most people need, what most teacher needs, to add the first set of features. Then they will help SLS to reach critical mass. Now the teacher are getting used to it because these are things they really want. So once they get used to it, and then the next thing, new features could transform teaching and learning, something that teacher never thought of. You can use ICT to teach students in this way, but you never thought of, because I'm always teaching your own way. So let's see, we can add some new features that then we tell teachers, hey, you can teach the students in this way, which you never thought of. So that's how we actually transform teaching and learning. But first, before that, we get the teachers like to use it and students like to use it in the first place. And this is what they can do is that they can bridge research and practice. Because what happened is that, let's say in my place at in my institute, which is called National Institute of Education, we have our researchers working on ICT research, including me. So once we have come up with good ideas, we run our research and we have our proof of concepts, then we can introduce to the government, to the Ministry of Education, and then they start thinking of maybe it should be incorporated to SLS. So they make this very open-ended. Yeah, they can always improve, develop when times go by, rather than always stick to the same types of features, same type of development ideas. This is very important for the sustainability of a learning platform. Yeah, so it becomes more inclusive and sustainable learning platform, the whole idea. And not only that, yeah, the teachers need to go through this kind of professional development so that they can do well. So we have these ideas, like say, for example, in this SG Learning Designer Circle, I talked about this before. This was a private group, and so far we have close to 20,000 members. Most of them are school teachers. So this was launched by the Educational Technology Division, who developed this SLS. That was about 3 years ago, when 2018, when SLS was launched. So they invited teachers to join this so that they can share ideas. They say, okay, I design some learning activities, I design the learning lesson plans through this using SLS. Or if you have the problems, I'm facing some problems, I post it, ask question. There are 20,000 members there, and maybe at least 1,000, 2,000, they are active members. And from 1,000, 2,000 members, at least one or two of them will be able to give an answer to the teachers. So that will work well. And it doesn't mean that you can only talk about SLS. Yeah, they are also welcome to incorporate other third-party software, third-party tools. That's all right. It doesn't mean that it has to be SLS exclusive. Yeah. So that's how it works. And also we have another group, which was during pandemic, during the circuit breaker period, the home-based learning just started. Then my colleagues in National Institute of Education, we set up this home-based learning support group. Yeah. As of now, there are close to 7,000 members, which is actually for teachers to share their experience, to share their design ideas, or ask questions directly relevant to home-based learning. Yeah. So these are the things that we can do to help teachers to help each other. So that's the whole idea. And also from there, I mean, from our ministry, they're able to look at all this, what is the frontline teachers, that the problem they're facing, the challenge they're facing, their wish list, and their bright ideas they can learn from them. So this is also a good channel for the ministry to actually have communicate with teachers and even with researchers, because as researchers, we're allowed to join these groups. And so that's why we see the entire design idea. This was posted on SG Learning Design Circle by Natalie Han, the teacher I mentioned just now. So during the pandemic, what happened is that teachers turned existing lesson plans into online learning experiences, but need to be flexible in using ICT. It's not just, let's say you already have a lesson plan which original is all face-to-face, and then you say, okay, this component we just take it out and then turn it to online, but we still teach them in the same way. Now you just change the modality. You change it from physical to digital, but then the teaching method never changed. Yeah, so we can leverage on the ICT to do something which you cannot do in the classroom or physically. Yeah, so these are things that we are trying to do, which later when I give you some examples of seamless learning, that will be a very concrete example of what we can do, which is something that you cannot do in the classroom. So you can also complement. So other than using SLS, we complement with other off-the-shelf ICT tools, such as virtual meeting software, because until now, SLS, we still don't have our own in-house virtual meeting software. So MOE, Ministry of Education, they've been subscribing to Zoom, and all the local schools are using Zoom, and also using Padlet and so on and so forth. So this is an SLS feature example. Just now we keep talking about enhanced thinking routines. There are different types of thinking routines. So this is one of them: what, why, and how. So get a student to scaffold the student to go through a specific thinking routines to help them to do not just learning, but also reflection, application, and so on and so forth. You can do something like this. And also other routines here, possible routines. I know, I wonder, I learn. I think for especially primary school, K-12 science teacher, you're supposed to be familiar with this scaffold. I know, I wonder, I learned. Okay, and also observe, think, question, and also think, question, inquire. Different possible routines you can choose from the library, or you can design your own routine and get the students to go through, okay, this to break down their thinking process, to guide their thinking process. Right? And the interesting part about this thinking routine is that it's not just something like a workbook, an exercise book. You type something and you send to a teacher, and teacher give you a score, end of story, or give you some comments, end of story. Because our thinking routine has social media feature, that means that students, once they post it, the entire class will see it, and the classes, their classmates can respond, can comment. So this is make collaborative learning or group learning, or maybe peer evaluation happening, rather than only teacher, student, student, teacher, end of story. Yeah. Okay. So not only that, you look at this timing. They said we want to have all the secondary school. Sec means secondary school or middle school in your term. Okay. Secondary school by 2028, every student have their own personal device, which is most likely either they can use Chromebook, they can use a laptop or whatsoever. Yeah. So look at the timing. That one was announced in March 2020 last year. Yeah, by 2028. Okay. So that means that, sounds like there's still 8 years to go. I mean, because it was announced last year. Okay. And within 3 months, June 17, 2020, last year. Okay. The government announced 2021. We just push 7 years ahead. Yeah, we said we don't wait. Just don't wait. We just accelerate this plan. Yeah. So actually, by the end of this year, all our secondary school students already have their own personal device. Yeah. From that, you can even better this type of we can better facilitate blended learning with 1-2. So home-based learning set to be regular part. That's also another announcement in June. Regular part of school post-COVID-19, even post-COVID-19. Yeah, they want it regular part of schooling post-COVID-19. That was what was announced. So it doesn't mean that we are going to do a lot of home-based learning, but maybe let's say every month, every fortnight we have 1 day home-based learning. That was what was announced, and that was in June 2020. It sounds like old school, K-12, they want to do this, but by the end of the year, they decided that, hey, only secondary school and above, they are going to do this, because in primary school, once COVID-19 is over, all the parents are going back to work. It's not quite safe, so-called safe, to leave those primary school students, K-6 students, to stay home alone to do home-based learning. Yeah, but secondary school, fine, you stay home. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen. And we call it PDLP just now. So this is every student have their own personal laptop or tablet. So that's called PDLP, Personal Digital Learning Program. So with PDLP in place, students can do home-based, secondary school students can do home-based learning. Well, okay. So that's why also in June, they announced MOE to review how to blend classroom digital online learning as school reopen after COVID-19 circuit breaker. So blended learning is something is already quite familiar within educational field, but then to the public, blend is something new for them. Blended learning is something new to them. So it's a blend. Okay, it sounds like this is a very strange word. Yeah, even blend, use this coding. And by the end of by December, I think the MOE already come out with a framework of designing of doing blended learning. And so instead of talking about starting from 2021, we will make home-based learning become regular activities. Now they call it, we're making blended learning becomes a regular activity. So it means that by the end of this year, 2021, all the secondary school, they're supposed to do two. Every month they do 1 or 2 blended learning lessons for every subject. So that's what they're planning to do. Okay. So this is the part that again our Ministry of Education, they come up with some sort of we can call it a kind of a scenario of what's happening. When a student is doing their home-based learning, but it's actually a very much a blended learning style kind of activity. So let's see. I need to the sound again.
The object should balance us. Mom, it's HBL day. What are the assignments for today?
I have uploaded an assignment onto SLS. Please do it for your HBL day tomorrow.
Okay, do physics first.
Look at this picture and try to recreate this balancing act.
Complete this claim support question table after you finish the experiment. Cool, I want to try that. I need 2 forks, a glass cup, and a toothpick. Check.
Okay, just double check.
Keeps falling. How do I balance it on a pivot point? How? Did any of you manage to balance the forks? I couldn't. Shahir says balance is only achieved when CG is directly below the pivot. Let me try again. Yes. My setup was able to remain in equilibrium after I found out that the center of gravity was directly below the pivot point. If the center of gravity is directly above the pivot point, the object should balance as well. But it doesn't. Miss Rani challenged us to balance other household objects using the same principle. Okay. Miss Rani, I managed to balance these. The crane uses the principle of balance to do its job. Are there building structures that seem to defy gravity? Ah, a science museum. Wow. How did they build this? What other buildings seem to defy gravity? Wow! Let me share my findings with Papa Mami, Hafiz Shahir, and Miss Rani. The object.
Okay, yeah, try to move to- So these are kind of a proposed strategy for home-based learning and blended learning. We want to create realistic and relevant learning context in your home-based learning. To provide space for discourse and collaboration. You can see in some of these activities we saw just now. Encourage ownership of learning both online and offline. We try to provide space for reflection and heighten awareness for progress. Engage in tasks of sufficient complexity to engage and challenge the student in their home-based learning setting. And finally, engage in multiple perspectives through multimodal. Text, maybe photos, images, or sound, or maybe videos, and so on and so forth, or representation. So these are things that we can do for this. And if I move on, carry on from this Now I talk about seamless learning because that was actually my research, and I researched seamless learning much earlier than actually started in about 2008 doing the research until now. The idea is that we want to connect learning, continuity of learning across different contexts like formal and informal learning, individual and social learning, as well as physical learning and digital learning. It's not just learning anytime, anywhere. We need to bridge the learning process and outcomes, ideally in one device per learner setting. But it doesn't mean that without one device per learner, you cannot do that. This is a very science learning example. I just quickly go through because of the time constraint, but I just show you. The students are supposed to learn in primary 3, grade 3, they're supposed to learn plants and their parts. So what happened is that first, I will skip the in-class part. They're supposed to do this KWL. I know, I wonder, and learn. But they fill out the K and W first. I know and I wonder on their mobile phone. And out of school, they take photos, but they need to learn about the different functionality of different types of plants in terms of their stems or their leaves and their roots. So they take photos at their neighborhood from home and they share it online, make comparison, and discuss why these two types of leaves look different. Maybe they function differently. So they search internet to find answers and share with others. And then they discuss and compare and co-create knowledge. And also they create animations to illustrate the transport system, how water transportation takes place. Also, the teacher need to consider learning by bringing back, choose some of the student books. Some are correct one and some are ambiguous one, some contains misconception, but bring it to the classroom for discussion. Okay, so these are the things we have, and also eventually the student need to do this. They create this concept map. Yeah. So we have time constraint. I just quickly go through. So these are how we actually bridge activities. The main point from here is that we want to make the most out of their experience within individual environments. Yeah, to learn and do the right thing at the right place at the right time with the right tools available. So at home, there are things that you can do at home, so make good use of them. At classroom, there are good things you can do at classroom. Yeah, digital tools, you can use it for things that you cannot do in classroom, then you make good use of it. And you link all these activities together. So that's why later in Singapore, when the learning started, just now I talked about the Academy of Singapore teachers. The master teachers, they were being tasked last year to come up with a blended learning framework to design to kind of provide professional development to all the teachers in Singapore. Yeah, so that's why they kind of this diagram on screen, off screen, asynchronous and synchronous. They form these 2 dimensions, form 4 different quadrants or 4 different learning spaces for different activities and need to traverse between activities. And actually, what happens that their diagram was actually kind of modeled after my own seamless learning. This framework I published in the past few years. So, and then I actually made use of their diagram, yeah, for my future workshops running to train the teachers. So this is kind of a research practice nexus that happened to me. So I just finished this with my our former education minister's quotes. Older generations, we talk about qualification to see to their careers. Still, children today are growing up in a different world. So technology advancing rapidly, solving challenges require expertise spans across disciplinary boundaries. So especially STEM is one way to see it, span across boundaries. So that type of workforce that already been wondered, the skills and knowledge you need a year or 2 later no longer works. So COVID-19 reset the competitive playing field and accelerate all these trends. So this is something that we really need to drive on, rather than stop at whatever we are familiar with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wong, for that insightful presentation. Thank you for sharing with us interesting ideas on the techno-pedagogical innovations in the Singapore's education system in this pandemic situation. Let us give a warm virtual applause to the presentation of Dr. Wong. In the interest of time, we will only entertain 1 to 2 questions. The rest of the questions might be answered later by Dr. Wong directly in the Q&A section. So let us now read the questions. Sir LJ, can you please flash the 2 questions? Okay, the first question comes from an anonymous. The person said, "Good day. I'd like to ask if Singapore has an existing education plan or program for HBL pre-pandemic, or did you design your HBL and blended learning as a response for COVID emergence? I am asking to see how planning ahead and doing it ahead give ground and confidence in the educational system as compared to planning and doing it just when it is needed. Could you share some benefits and tips about HBL as well? Thank you in advance.
I would say even before the pandemic, thank you for the question. I would say even before pandemic, I mean, Singapore government have been thinking about how to reform, how to change the teachers' way of teaching. Yeah, so to really address the need of developing students' 21st century competencies. Yeah, so these are things that we're really thinking hard. And there are already some strategies like ICT. Yeah, pushing ICT is one way, and that's why we have SLS. Yeah, but then because of this pandemic, then they say, okay, maybe we should move even faster. Yeah, let's go for blended learning. Before that, we say, okay, maybe we have 8 to 10 years time before we're really ready for one device per person. We have this blended learning, but then because of pandemic, we said, okay, we already, although we actually rush for handling the pandemic issue to handle the circuit breaker or lockdown, and we push for HBL like in a rush, in an emergency. But then we say, okay, it doesn't seem to be that difficult as if we really implement it, because we have the readiness. Where SLS or the teacher have been using it for quite a while. It's not something new, and because of the ICT, actually, it becomes a change agent for teachers' way of teaching. Yeah, so let's drive on this. So actually, we move even faster. We say want to start with in 2028. They say, why don't we start in 2021? I think that's the way that I see it. So it's a government pushing for it. In fact, for us as a researcher, we want it 10 years ago. We already want this, but then it's only pandemic that this thing happened.
Thank you, sir. Let's go to the second question. From Concepcion Ramos. It is really nice that some countries like Singapore have already opened their schools for this academic year, and it seems that some of them have started adjusting to the new normal. Unfortunately, though, here in the Philippines, we have not fully opened the educational system yet, especially in the primary level. That is why most of our marginalized students are having a hard time coping up. Modular printed learning has become a challenge to everyone. Can you give us practical strategies where we can provide laboratory or experimental activities when we cannot see if they're doing the procedures the right way? Dr. Wong?
I'm not sure what's meant by modular printed learning. But if you're talking about, let's say, provide laboratory experimental activities, I think the tricky part is that depending on how complex or how demanding, resource demanding an experimental activity or laboratory activities are. If it's something simple, like just now we saw that video clips where they can use their whatever they're available at home to do some experiment, then go for it. Yeah, if it's something that you have to use very expensive equipment or even like a microscope, all these things, I think that the teacher will need to do some demo, giving some videos, and then get the student to experiment with some simpler. So maybe the teacher need to redesign some activities where the student can use resources, tools, or objects available at home. Yeah, they can learn concepts, important scientific concepts from all those experiments, but not going through with those activities are experiments with very complex or very expensive equipment, whatever. Yeah, so that's the point I make. You try to make good use of whatever you have in that environment, even though it's a restriction, but maybe it can give you something new idea you never thought of.
Yes, sir, I agree with your answer. Thank you very much, Dr. Wong. My takeaway in your presentation is that the increased integration of improved ICT in teaching continues to make student learning personalized, authentic, and social, despite of the pandemic that limits the face-to-face interaction inside the classroom. So at this point, as a sign of our gratitude, we would like to award this certificate to Dr. Wong. The certificate reads, Republic of the Philippines, Department of Science and Technology, Science Education Institute, Science Teacher Academy for the regions. Award this certificate of recognition to Long Shang Wong for his invaluable contribution as plenary speaker at the second DOST SEI Project Star International Conference with the theme Innovations, Challenges, and Transformations in STEM Education, Moving Forward in a Post-Pandemic World, held from November 16 to 18, 2021. Signed, Josette TBU, PhD Director. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Wong. Thank you for being our speaker. And so we are now moving on to the third plenary session, and this will be moderated by Ms. Maggie Cano. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Gomez. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ms. Magnolia Vida Cano from Bicol University, and I will moderate the third plenary session. So let's all be all ears today for an essential aspect of our well-being as educators and as learners as well. So first, may I introduce our speaker. She finished BA English in 3.5 years, cum laude. She obtained a master's degree, major in guidance, and a PhD in educational psychology. She has been an associate professor at the UP College of Education for 23 years. She is also the division chair of the Division of Educational Leadership and Professional Services and a registered guidance counselor. She has published and presented several researches both locally and internationally. She also served as resource person in TV shows such as Moms and Kapwa Ko Mahal Ko, and in numerous trainings and webinars. She has been awarded with the Natatanging Lingkod Komunidad 2021 at the University of the Philippines, Diliman because of her active involvement in promoting mental health for students, parents, teachers, and other sectors such as PWDs. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Lorelei R. Binluan for Plenary 3 on Self-Care and Social Emotional Learning. Ma'am?
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, may I now share my screen? Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Kindly prompt me with the time, okay? Yeah. So this is my topic for this afternoon, self-care and social emotional learning. Okay, so how do you feel today? If you're familiar with the movie, right? Do you feel sad today? Are you happy, right? Angry, tired? And another question that I would like you to answer, you might use the chat box for our interaction. So what song describes your week? And why did you choose that song? So for me, I chose, if you are familiar with the fight song, right? There's this line, I might only have one match, but I can make an explosion. So lyrics of the songs will really help us also boost our thought about ourselves. And it will also really help dealing with our pains in the past. And then true or false, right? Teachers, especially in STEM, are you responsible only for the academic development of your students? I am not responsible for my students' mental health. Depression and anxiety are made up and not real. Mental health illness is something to be ashamed of. So what are your answers? So I hope this afternoon we're going to have answers to these items. So first and foremost, you are to smile. Smile for no reason. It's contagious. It takes only a few muscles to really smile. For you to really have that self-care, the easiest thing for you to do is smile. Why? When you smile, your brain releases tiny molecules called neuropeptides to help fight off stress. And it also helps in our heart rate, reducing our heart rate. Now, I got this from Facebook and it's really helpful, right? So how to hack happiness? So nowadays, many people have gone into several activities. So in the Philippines, we call them plantitos, plantitas, those who are dealing with their plants, right? So there, you can have oxytocin, those who became fur parents. If you play with your dog, you will release that oxytocin. Dopamine for completing a task. It doesn't have to be that big, right? So like watering your plant, as I have said earlier, is one of those. And then serotonin, now for those who are into sports like running or even walking, those who are into yoga nowadays, then you have serotonin. And then endorphin, the painkiller, there, laughter, exercise. So when was the last time you laughed a lot? Have you watched a movie? Have you cracked a joke? Something like that. So in the Philippines, we have the mental health app, or the RA 11036. And I'm just wondering if those who are listening now, right, I want you to think about if your institution has a program for mental health, for not only for your students, but for everyone, the stakeholders of education. So that will include, of course, the administration, the teachers, the staff, and even the parents, right? And of course, more so the students. We also have in the Philippines the RA 11313 Safe Spaces app, wherein everyone is accepted and no bastos law, no harassment, right? And then, what about your safe space, a place of environment in which a person or category of people can feel confident that they will not be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any other emotional or physical harm, right? So here, we also have the Anti-Bullying Act of 2013. So this is very important when we talk about self-care, when we talk about social emotional learning. Okay, so kindly think about the programs that are already in place in your institution. If there are none yet, then it's time for you to think about your plans, especially for the next school year, right? And then, of course, we have inclusivity, right? Everyone should be accepted. Everyone should be loved and respected, right? So there, appreciated. So look at this. So if someone who cannot go into the waters, right, they have to do something so the person can do the same thing as what the others are doing. This is inclusivity. But this is swimming, right? Or just dipping into the water. What about in our school system? What about in our community? And what about at home? These are all important things that we have to think about. And then here, this is also a reality in the Philippines. I'm not so sure about the other countries, but I mean, in terms of data, right? But some of my friends in Pakistan, in not so rich countries, these are real as well. They have told me about this. So this is our goal, equality versus there. We have to think about how we design things, not only in STEM, but in all of the areas in our educational system. So look at this. What about what's happening now, right? Are the teachers really forcing the students to do their own thing? What about the parents? Is this really also happening at home? So this is social emotional learning. Social emotional learning is the process through which children and adults understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationship, and make responsible decisions. Later on, I'll give you more meaning and some more tips about SEL and how do we go about doing this in a way, in quotation mark, properly, right, in our respective institutions. So we focus on feelings. I often say that feelings are neither right nor wrong, they just are. So let me repeat that. Feelings are neither right nor wrong, they just are. We really have to acknowledge and validate feelings. However, we have to focus on the expression of feelings. Say, for example, somebody got angry, somebody got mad, and because of this anger, because of this emotion, that person killed someone or that person hit someone physically, verbally. So what happens? There's a case, right? That person might be put into jail, or he might also be killed by the relatives of the person he killed. So there are repercussions of our actions. But we can get angry without becoming disagreeable, without becoming being sanctioned by the rules of our society. So what's the tip there, or what are we going to do with our emotions? Yes, acknowledge and validate, but we have to deal with it. We have to self-regulate, right? We have to learn how to express our anger positively, or redirect our anger to a very something that is useful, right, to our society and even at home. So later on, I'll give you more tips about it. So a very important question nowadays is, am I co-escalating or co-regulating? Are you really adding up to the problem, or are you really co-regulating or helping things to be okay? Dealing with things in a very good way. So kindly think about this, kindly ask yourselves or kindly ask your management about it, how you really respond to certain concerns, problems, right? So this is our goal, right? To strike a balance. One false move here and you'll see that the rocks or the pebbles are going to be scrambled. So what are we going to do? Or we have to build again, right? Get all the pieces together and build them up again and strike a balance. It might take you a long time. It might take you a short time, but the thing is, the attitude, right? The decision to strike a balance is there. So we have to really think about it again. Now, self-care. Okay, this is really common, right? The definition or the reminder, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself first. So if someone is asking you for, let's say, peace of mind, and you don't have it, yes, you can fake it, right? When you tell the person, no, you can do this, but that person can really validate if you have that in yourself. No? So with our counselors, usually they feel how the counselor also feels. So I hope we're not going to fake it. So if you are not in the pink of health, for instance, in helping other people, it's all right to rest. It's all right to veer away from people first and deal with your own concerns. And then once you are energized, once you are ready, then that's the time you help again, right? That's self-care. So with self-care and social emotional learning, the term mental health is really, really important. So what is it? It refers to our overall psychological well-being. It includes the way we feel about ourselves. So earlier, I've asked you about how do you feel today, but now I'll ask you about how do you feel about yourself? Are you happy being you? Are you confident? Are you happy and have you accepted your past, no matter how painful it is? That is included in there. And then what about the quality of your relationships? How many real friends do you have? So we have ABCs of levels of friendship. A is the acquaintance, B is the brotherly, C is the close one. So how many A-level friendships do you have? B-level and C-level friendships. So kindly look into your relationships because your support system is very, very important, especially nowadays when the pandemic has started, right? And it's still not yet over. So we need more support. And then what about the ability to manage feelings, right? As I have mentioned earlier, we have to accept and validate feelings or emotions. but we really have to think about how we express the negative emotions. And I just hope that your important others or the people around you can give you feedback as to how you really express, for example, anger, how you express your sadness or your frustrations, so that you get to learn from their feedback and think about the things that you would like to change. Okay. And then how do you deal with difficulties? And the last is very important. What's the meaning of your life? How do you derive meaning and joy, in what's going on right now? Are you still there, having that purpose of helping your students not only learn the topics from your subject matter, but more so, have you taught them how to love themselves and the love for learning in general? So those are very important things. And then we can also add that good mental health is not just the absence of mental health problems such as depression or anxiety. Rather, it's the presence of positive characteristics. And what are these, right? Coping with life's challenges, handle stress, build strong relationships, and recover from feedbacks. Okay, these are the interventions that we usually use in our counseling, but I will not have the time to really discuss everything, but I'll share with you one at least in this presentation. Okay, and these are the basic counseling skills. I firmly believe that even though you don't have the license, such as us, like having the registered guidance counselor ID or the qualifications, right? In your own right, you are functioning as a guidance counselor. So teacher does counselor. So these are the things that we have to focus on, like your gesture. So if you are talking to a student and if you do this, right, this is a closed posture. You are not listening intently. So open arms, open palms. So that's part of that. What about the tone of the voice, right? If you say, how are you? Or how are you? Those are different things. So these are all important, okay? And then this, I want to stress this, that it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to end the stigma. For self-care and SEL to work, right? We have to acknowledge that there will be times that we are not okay. And in the Philippines, there's a stigma. Stigma of not going to any helping professional, like guidance counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist, right? In other countries, it's like just going to a beauty parlor, having your hair fixed or cut. It's like going to a dental checkup, and it's all right. It's nothing. But in the Philippines, if you go to a guidance counselor, it should be like, a hush-hush or a secret, because they don't like to be told or to be labeled that they have something wrong, in their minds or in their lives. So please veer away from this. It's all right to really ask for help, right? How do you feel today? Afloat or, drowning? Whatever you are feeling right now, acknowledge it. And then if you're drowning, that's a time for you to ask for help. If you are afloat, then try to go again to a helping professional. Why? Because it's for you to really maintain that, right? How to remain afloat. So both ways you will need help, right? And then this, we have to give psychosocial support nowadays, right? And then let me introduce to you one of my favorite theorists, Urie Bronfenbrenner. Why, right? I want you to really focus into the analysis of a person. We don't have to just think about the cause and effect relationship, like this student is really bright because the parents are also bright. This student is really a bully because the father is also a bully. It's not that, right? When we want to understand a person, we have to look into the systems. So that's why I'm introducing to you Yuri Bronfenbrenner, and the individual or student is inside, right? The center. So look at this, like even the political systems are also affecting us, not only students, but also the teachers and other stakeholders. So the culture. So when we understand a person, we have to deal with the different systems, right? So emotional learning, again, let's focus and think about if we are a healthy person. This is very important in SEL. And look into the different characteristics. How many of this do you have? Okay. And then there, in school settings, the academic development of students is most emphasized. So we deal with the short quizzes, the scores there, the mastery, and then how much a student masters the content is rewarded with high grades, with quarter and honors at the end of the school year. Academic related performance is celebrated. That's why we have the banners, right? Congratulating our students who passed in top universities, right? And then schools also use academic performance as basis for who gets into section, right? Section 1, the cream of the crop, or A, or who sits on row 4. And the emphasis on academic performance is a reality in many educational systems. It is important to many schools as a measure of accountability to parents, school officials, and in the case of public schools, the national and local government. This is true especially in the context of science high schools or schools where STEM is a senior high school strand. Again, continuation of point number 1, in students, it has been found to influence their vocational preference. So how many students have you heard say that they are not good in math and therefore will not take science or engineering as a major in college? How many former students of yours have gone into college, enrolled in STEM program, only to find out that their true vocation or passion lies in law, music, or elsewhere? And the not so bright side of emphasis on academic achievement is that those who don't really meet the threshold are labeled sometimes deliberately, sometimes unintentionally, in such derogatory terms as bobo or dumb, tamad, no? And the kinder ones will refer to them as underachievers or not having yet reached their full potential. So does that sound familiar? So one film that I use in class is the I Not Stupid from Singapore, right? In the movie, right, there are many students, same level, and then they came from different family background. But you will notice, no, as I have put in the slide, no, that they have different passion or let's say motivation. That's what I meant. Motivation in terms of studying. So they have their struggles, and so kindly look into the movie, and you can use this in your classes. And you will see there how parents really force some pupils to really excel. But the parents should also realize that that's not the proper way of motivating students to learn, not by force, but by, love and affection that they give to their children. Point number 2 is social and emotional learning equals as important as academic learning. So since the publication of Daniel Goldman in 1995, the book is entitled Emotional Intelligence. Educators and researchers from different disciplines have collaborated to develop a framework that supports not only the academic development, but also the social and emotional development of children, adolescents in school settings. So some more, research has shown that social and emotional achievement support academic achievement. According to Dorlac and others, right? Students typically do not learn alone, but rather in collaboration with teachers, company of peers, with encouragement of their families. Okay, so relationship really matters. And then here, the collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learning defines SEL as an integral part of education and human development. SEL is a process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. Feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. So what are the benefits of social emotional learning? So SEL leads to improve academic outcomes and behaviors. So Durlap said that in his meta-analysis, right, SEL interventions increase academic performance, right? Students participating in SEL programs showed improved classroom behavior, increased ability to manage stress and depression, and better attitudes about themselves and others. So SEL benefits are long-term and global. A study found that there was a positive correlation between strong social emotional assets measured at the end of the intervention and higher levels of well-being up to 18 years later. So that's from Taylor. Also, other studies found that social and emotional assets promoted in SEL can support the positive development of students from diverse family backgrounds and geographic contexts, and that maximum benefits are obtained when SEL is designed with a specific context or culture in mind. Okay, SEL, to add more, is a wise financial investment. SEL helps improve lifetime outcomes, and this is what we really want to have, right, for our students. And then scales that measure aspects of SEL have been developed. One scale had 3 factors, namely task articulation, peer relations, and self-regulation. Another scale had several personal sensitiveness, personal awareness, personal management, relationship management, and responsible decision making. And yet another had 5 social awareness, social isolation, self-control, social anxiety, and relationship skills. So what does SEL intervention look like, right? So here are some of the examples. A 10-week program, 8-week self-esteem enhancement program, 50 to 70 minutes per session to improve students' attitudes towards themselves, and a 7-week human values program, a 10-week, right, and a girls empowerment program. If you notice, time is really needed. A program should be in place to help specific things, like to reduce trauma, for example, to manage anger, to focus on their decision-making skills. Then we really need to have these things. So at this point, I want you to think about, again, your respective institutions, if you have these things in place. If you still don't have it, then I could help you set it up, for free. Don't worry about it, okay? So here, what about SEL more, right? What about this? How has COVID, right, affected our education and development? So the research on improving systems of education, RISE, looked into this question and found the following. Support for learning through distance education did not reach all students. School closures impacted students in different ways, with the most marginalized experiencing the most adverse effects. Students' mental health and well-being have become more urgent concerns. The pandemic has highlighted the important role that schools play in supporting other aspects of children's development beyond the cognitive. And so, as schools reopen, students need to catch up on lost learning while adapting to new circumstances. In the Philippines, as the mental well-being of Filipino children continues to be neglected, a subsequent and enduring mental health epidemic can be expected for years to come. So we really have to deal with this, right? Students are really reaching out for help or counsel on social media. So here is an example of such calls in the past week on Reddit, Payups, right? Payups is UP, right? University of the Philippines. I was overwhelmed by the workload and felt severe depressions, right? These are the quoted lines. I didn't do anything for a month. What shall I do? Freshie here, and my grades are not good. No, I have great depression. It's really getting into me, and then I didn't go to my classes. Will I be able to cope? So there. But Price also said that although more evidence is urgently needed, there are strong indications that improving children's socio-emotional skills may also help to improve their mental health and well-being, and help to prevent adverse outcomes. Specifically, building social and emotional learning skills can help children respond to different and unexpected situations in a calm and emotionally regulated manner, enabling them to set out and develop strategies for dealing with difficult circumstances and to interact and work with others to address their problems. No? The educational system can help students adjust to the pressures of the pandemic, and these are some: supporting students' emotional regulation, supporting students' self-efficacy, supporting students' social skills, and addressing students' mental health. Okay, and then another, the practical advice from Ali Budbud. Okay, it's about online learning. Okay, first, open cameras only when necessary. Okay, so how many teachers require their students to open their cameras, right? Connectivity challenges and constantly seeing oneself during video conferencing had resulted in high stress levels and poor mental health among students. So should we let them just keep their camera off? It's another thing that we have to think about. Second, avoid requiring school uniforms during online classes. Okay, some schools have required or requested, some encourage. Okay. Second, school uniforms may pose an additional financial burden to an already economically constrained population as a result of economic and social lockdowns. Third, take regular classroom breaks and avoid multitasking to improve concentration, avoid burnout, reduce mental stress, and lower screen fatigue. Fourth, train teachers on mental health promotion, because we expect higher mental health burden among students, and given the lack of mental health resources, there is a need to do more mental health literacy campaigns and related activities. Fifth, promote self-care activities. Because mental health resources are scarce, self-care activities may be the only option for some people to maintain their mental well-being and avoid poor mental health. Okay, and then later on I'll focus more on self-care, specific things, right? I'm looking at the time. Teachers must take actions to empower themselves to become effective partners in student social and emotional learning. So this includes self-care. Like, again, what can you give to your students if you don't have them? So first and foremost, we have to deal with ourselves. So what is self-care? No? Earlier, I have given you a simple definition. This is a more detailed one. According to OSIPO, self-care consists of the regular activities an individual engages in which reduce or alleviate chronic stress. So please identify your regular activities. Do you sing? Do you dance? Do you do your exercise? I have read one article wherein the author mentioned that if we sing for 10 minutes, then we boost our immune system. So what do? Right? I turn on my Spotify while I'm taking a bath and sing along with the songs that I have there in my library. So for me, so that is okay. I am asking myself, have I spent 10 minutes singing? So do some things, right? For yourself. And then positively stated, self-care means the self-initiated behavior that people choose to incorporate to promote good health and general well-being. The study authors added that it's about being healthy, but also about incorporating coping strategies to deal with work stressors. So the 38th item, Scoville Practitioner Professional in Resiliency and Self-Care Inventory, has 4 dimensions, namely professional vitality, personal vitality, professional stress, and personal stress, which should give you an idea of what influences self-care. Okay, so I have also started a research on work-life balance of parents and teachers. If you want to be a part of it, just tell me later. Okay, but I also include sessions for self-care, dealing with themselves, right? Including healing the past, or dealing with the past, healing the child within. So usually I conduct 4 sessions with them and then see how work-life balance improves. So how does it improve? Okay, through the 4 sessions. And then sample statements, which you will rate from strongly agree and disagree. So moving further, self-care is not self-indulgence or being selfish. You can look at it as a self-preservation. There's often tension, often subtle, between self-care and other care, especially for those in the helping professions, including teachers and counselors. Okay, so consider what the poet Maya Angelou is quoted to have said: as you grow older, you will discover that you have 2 hands, one helping yourself and the other for helping others. Okay, so the tension need not exist. Self-preservation is an expression of our humanity. Okay, self-care here is an ethical imperative. Teachers have an obligation to students as well as to themselves, their colleagues, and their loved ones, not to be damaged by their work. So there. Okay. And 4th point for the SEL, there are many self-care strategies that a teacher can employ. Jeffries 2017 suggests understanding the ABCs of self-care: awareness, balance, and connection. Okay. It means taking time for leisure pursuits such as listening to music, reading for pleasure, spending time in nature. It also means knowing one's own limits. Okay, and then what else? Connection refers to connection with oneself, to others, and to something larger. These connection strategies include developing a social network beyond the workplace, political activism that is attuned to your values, community involvement, and paying attention to spiritual needs. May we not forget our spiritual needs, right? So you have to do also mindfulness, right? A contemplative practice in another self-care strategy. There are many things or many strategies about mindfulness in YouTube. You might want to search for them. I'll show you later, right? And then Etty, right? A Dutch author once said that sometimes the most important thing in a whole day is the rest we take between 2 deep breaths. Okay, no time yet. All right, what else? So you have to start journaling if you still don't have one. So you start writing, I am aware, I feel, or I'm just happy today. Actually, I usually give my students an assignment to really get a logbook or a very good notebook, right? And then every day they have to jot down their happy thoughts and the things that they have received. You know, what are they happy about? In Harvard, I think in their subject there, I think 10 items are being asked by the professor to be jotted down. For me, in the Philippines, I'll just say, okay, it's good for you to have 2 to 3 per day. The thing is, you keep track of what makes you happy. And then here, everydayhealth.com suggests the practical ideas for self-care, covering the physical and emotional and the spiritual, right? Eat a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, be kind to yourself, get enough quality sleep, meditate, spend time in nature, right? And the self-care checkup in positivepsychology.com asks you the frequency and quality of your self-care. It gives a person some ideas about what self-care practices to start doing. This include taking up a hobby, taking a holiday or escape, keep appointments with medical professionals, engaging in mentally stimulating discussions, being romantic, balancing work and leisure, and volunteering for charity. So there, I said I'll teach you something, right? I'm using facial yoga or tapping. So can you please join me, right? Start here and then up to you to how much pressure you want to put, right? But I do this every day. I usually count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then go to your near the temple, going up and down again. Okay. And then here, jaw, right? No, sorry, chin up to your jaw. And then here. Okay. So there. Every day you do this. Or when there's a meeting and you're not presenting anything, you can turn off your camera and do the tapping yourself. And then for your immune system, right? I've watched a video showing this, right? You have to start here, tap again, and then up to you whether you would like to apply more pressure and more counting, right? And then so palms down, palms up, and then do this also here. And then here with your lymph nodes here, going to your, what's this, near your stomach, near the rib cage. And then for your back, you do this, and then tap your back here near your waist, and then down to your legs. So that's helping your immune system. You may also do this in the morning. So while I am going outside and having my walk, or just staying under the heat of the sun, then I do this as well. Okay, and then breathing exercise. There are many videos about this, but what I'm using is we inhale. So please be with me in inhaling, counting 1 to 4, inhaling through your nose, 1, 2, 3, 4. Suspend 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, keep your breath, right? And then breathe out through your mouth, another 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you do this for 10 repetitions, and that will also help you. Okay, and there are more, of course. So again, teachers also can train students with the help of their parents to practice self-care. So teachers need not only be the care providers, so you have to teach the parents. That's why parenting programs are very important. And then what about your good sleep hygiene? Okay, teach also students to seek social help, and train students to regulate emotions, train students in mindfulness practice. Okay, so summary, learning is a multi-dimensional and includes academic and social and emotional. So I'll add more, right? Please tell me how many more minutes I have. Kindly text me po. So I want you to focus on depression. So we can say that if the person has had this feeling of heaviness and feeling sad without any reason, if these symptoms persist for a period of at least 2 weeks, it can be called a depressive episode, right? And then signs and symptoms there, no? Feeling the feeling of worthlessness, no hope at all, being frustrated, having difficulty sleeping, and some more signs and symptoms, fatigue, right? Appetite or weight changes. Okay, and causes of depression, we should not only rely on our observations like, okay, this person has been depressed for quite some time because of his experiences. Okay, we should also consider the physical structure of the brain and the history of the family. Hormone changes. And I want you also to focus into this, right? Social media might help in, helping us become happy, but this is the other side of it. Okay, this is the other side of it. I only have 10 minutes. Is it true? So I hope that our social media is not causing us to be envious and eventually go into this thought. But is suicide ideation wrong? Is it really good or bad? When you are having a lot of problems, it's but common for an individual to think of suicide. It's but normal. But okay, doing something about that thought, like doing something on your wrist or hurting yourself or going somewhere else to hurt yourself, then that is something that is wrong. And that is something that is that we should really focus on. We have to help people having suicidal thoughts, especially our students, right? So teachers said the exam is too easy, even grade 1 can do it. Orange is a color or a fruit. Look at the facial expression, right? Or both. Okay, are we teaching our students critical thinking far beyond the content that they memorize, no? And that they okay, sorry, I have 10 more minutes. Let me go through it very fast. Okay, so some common stressors now. An example of teenager stressors, yes, parents, the attitudes of the parents, the lines. It's like, why can't you be like me? Why do you have failure? You're such a failure. You're a disgrace to our family. These are all not helping our students, our children. Stressors of teachers, right? In UP, we call it course paths. For others, they prepare modules, right? Finances, right? Not tech savvy. Red flags and behaviors that may require immediate attention. 10 minutes, okay. And then, how do you deal with your stress? You have to know your past, because your past might be interfering with your present, and you might not be aware of it. So sometimes you have to do regression, right? So there's only one thing to do, that is joining oneself. You might feel broken, you might have had trauma, but look at this. We can still beautify things, right? Broken colors, a broken crayon still color. So if you're broken, you're sad, you're devastated, you can get well, okay? And then your will, not mine, your way, your plan, not mine. We have to also focus on our spiritual health, okay? So here, this is Filipino, umupo, humiga, pumikit, maglista. You have to sit down, okay, breathe, and close your eyes and jot down things. So what do I plan to do? These are the things that I have done, and I have intended to do some more in the future. Oops. And then there, create the things that I do for my classes. Just to give you a sample here, music. Kindly listen to the music or the song Happiness by Lea Salonga. It has a line, happiness is 2 kinds of ice cream. Tying your shoe for the very first time. 10 minutes. What do I plan to do? Regression therapy. These are for my classes, right? Rewire. Halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. I shouldn't decide. I shouldn't show my emotion. Stop. Okay, so Maslow. Okay, use Maslow for self-care. If you are feeling so down, depressed, and you don't like to continue living, try to ask yourself if you have eaten, if you have drunk water, if you have rested. Go use the lowest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And why? We have to answer this. Why are we working? What for and for whom? This will give us meaning and motivation to move further and to really do well in what we are doing right now. So testing, these are the things that we need. I don't know if you have taken tests on measuring your IQ, EQ. This is emotional quotient, adversity quotient. This is success quotient, and there's also a new one, spiritual quotient. These are the things that I give my students to know more of themselves. So if you know yourself, then you can do self-care, right? Because you know your needs. And then, so journaling, blogging, vlogging, you can do these things. You can say to yourself, yes, I am strong. Sorry, I'm strong, but I am tired. I always pray for my students. Be That is a poem. It's good, right? If you want them to be honest, be honest. If you want them to be respectful, be respectful. What can we do? Great. For the institutions, I want you to look into your needs assessment for the stakeholders, and then strengthen your homeroom, okay? Strengthen your guidance office. Life career development program per year level, right? These are all just questions. And then, wait, not moving, wait lang. So what else can we do? So there, what program or help is in place for those who have red flags? So earlier, those are for the normal students. What about for those who have red flags? Do you have programs for them? What about the intake interviews, right? Special guidance program for the red flags, but not broadcasted, right? And then evaluation. Oh, sorry. And then what else? Suggestion program, healing the child within. Let me go through it. Your prevention toolkit, retooling seminars, parenting programs, at least twice a year. Okay. And then safe space toolkit. How is it? Do you have a toolkit for this? Procedure, prevention, yeah. So please have this in place in your respective schools. So we can journey together. Please consider those you, so internal factors, those you can control and those you cannot control, right? Urgent and important, adversity quotient. Kindly use PEMS in dealing with yourselves. You can jot down. This is a sample of needs. Okay, all aspects should be given attention or time. Stress, distress is the negative, eustress is the positive. So deal with your present, past, reality therapy. Okay, focus on there. These are 5 people. These are my family members, and we have to think about their age, the needs, right? The fears. So how do you feel today? Yes, angry. So you need to recharge. So with the pandemic, we are not in control of the virus, but we are in control of boosting our immune system. So have you drank lemon water, exercise? Oh, how's your sleep? There. And this I want to share with you. Okay, I was diagnosed of having breast cancer last August, in August 2017. But look at me now. I'm done with chemo. I'm done with all these things, and there. I'm still working and have a positive attitude about this. 4 is just a number. But when I read about it on the onset, right? Stage 4 cancer patients usually die. So I said, okay, so how many more years do I have? So I thought in 2017, that's it, right? But I have lived up to it, that 4 is just a number. Okay. What else? We operate on our needs. 10 minutes. It's calling. And then, so there are practical things, right? Sorry. Guidance services, please focus on this. I hope the services are in place in your respective institutions. Kindly look into this. Express gratitude, nutrition, hygiene, emotional abuse. Please deal with this. We prevent saying bad words, derogatory remarks to our students, to our children, to our colleagues, so they will not heal from it. So I hope we're going to be part of a healing community. So if you ask, oh, are you okay? I'm fine. It's not really true, right? They might have a lot of things going on in their minds. How's your cake? I hope here you are science and math majors, right? If the helium is the content of this, right? And you prick it with just one trigger, it will burst. But if that's not helium, 2 points of entry and the balloon is still intact. So strengthen the core. That's just my message here. You can also do this, right? Write your name. Ingrid is the name that I usually use, right? So that other people will not know that I am that. You jot down your concerns and break it down into smaller or chunks, right? So if you say your problem here is parent, then you can go with mother, father, what about it, past, present, future, there. Math problem, you're given a problem. You are to read the problem very well. Please tell the student that you have to understand your problem very well so you'll know you're given and know the equation and execute the equation. So same with life, right? Please tell me how many more minutes, okay? So REBT, this is rational emotive behavioral therapy, reframing the mind. So what is this? Why is this happening to me? Why is this trying to teach me? Is a game changer. When a child tells you they don't feel comfortable around someone, please pay attention. Okay, so there are cases nowadays wherein they are referred to me because they are being molested by their family members at home. So please help if this is the concern, right? The ABC I've mentioned earlier is this. Kindly just look into it. Example is what causes your stress, balance, right, and control. Please come up with a program for yourself, right? I have put there or placed there stressors, needs, right, and what are your coping mechanisms. Mindful or mindful, what do you have now? But the goal is this, the one on the right, being mindful. You focus. Say, for example, you're drinking coffee. Being mindful of it is while drinking coffee, you're not going to think about what you're going to do. Drinking coffee, being mindful of your drinking coffee is that focus on the aroma, focus on the heat, focus on the time that you are drinking your coffee. I want you to get a piece of one picture where it can help you think about yourself and put a word. So here, I love nature, I love sunrise, I love sunset. I have placed my arms like this. It's like for balance. So whenever I use this as my screensaver, I have printed this, then that's my reminder to myself, become. So become, it's for me, no? It's my secret. So become what? I don't know if I'm going to step on something, right? If I'm going to fall or step on a hard part or hard ground or maybe water, but still balance and move forward, okay? Sure you can, sure we can, right? To teach is to love. So change the world. We shouldn't be preparing students for a cruel world. We should be preparing students to change the world, okay? Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. Okay, this is a video, but I just got 2 screenshots. No, so the child is asking, what do you practice every day? Because whatever you practice, you'll get good at it. Okay, at the end of the day, tell yourself gently, I love you. You did the best you could today, and even if you didn't accomplish all you had planned, I love you anyway. Okay, so this is my last slide. You are what you are through your choice alone. So would you like to be a better person or a bitter person? It's your choice. This is a line from Ogmandino's Gift of Akbar. He's the author of The Greatest Salesman and other series. Okay. Any gem or takeaway this afternoon, right? And what's your part? Okay, everyone is a ripple. Let's do this. You might be one droplet of water, but your ripple will be there, right? Okay. So 5 minutes now po. Yeah, time for the question and answer portion. So this is my email address, lai_vinluan@yahoo.com or lrvinluan@up.edu.ph. Maraming salamat po. Kindly use fictitious email. If you cannot ask me now, you can email me. When I say fictitious email, others have avanagmamaganda@yahoo.com and others. If you cannot really divulge yourselves, it's all right. I answer emails, and I conduct counseling for free. Okay, so there. If you have questions, then you may ask now.
Wow, thank you very much, Ma'am Lorelei. So it's really a very insightful discussion, very inspiring, substantial. And so we have a number of comments here thanking you, ma'am, for this presentation. So I think there's a lot that you would like to share, but due to time constraint, we are limited by that. And also for the questions, we are going to entertain, I think, 2 questions only. So I would like to request Sir LJ to kindly flash on the screen. So there is a question here from Mr. Sullivan. It says here, more often than not, a word frequently associated with schoolwork and mental health is pacing, because it becomes difficult for students to balance schoolwork and their personal life. In the future, is there a way to normalize a school setting which creates groups relative to the pacing of how students learn?
Oh, is there a way to normalize? That's the question. Actually, there are many ways. My question to you, sir, is, will there be the will of the teacher, will of the administration to have such pacing, to have such avenue for the students? So there are many ways, sir. The thing is, we just have to really focus on doing it. Okay, let's start. Not next year, tomorrow. Okay, but there are many ways to normalize this. Yes.
So yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Create groups, of course, yes. The thing, yeah, may I just add that you really have to start the will, right? And then the nitty-gritty will follow. You have to have a meeting and know the specific things that you want to see, the outcomes in your institutions. But of course, I have mentioned something about the needs assessment. You always start with the needs assessment for your stakeholders. So ask the students, the parents, the teachers, the staff. Usually these 4. But you could also ask the community if you like. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, there are questions about certain instruments, but I think that can be answered through the Q&A na lang. And so at this point, we'll have another question this is a combined question from Concepcion Ramos and Jason R. Baez. We have provided a number of support for our kids' mental health, but seldom do I hear support for parents. I believe that their mental health is equally important as the kids. Are there links, agencies, which you can share so we can share it to our parents? And of course, not only parents, but to teachers as well.
About agencies and those groups, there are many po. There are many, right? I don't know if I need to mention. Can you please email me, right? Because if I mention one group, others might say that, why did you promote only one group? Sorry, but there are many. Okay, I've been helping these groups attending to parents, because we really know that parents are also affected, especially nowadays wherein the parents have to deal with their work from home duties and helping their children with their online learning. But there are many po, right? But if you are not really connected with some agencies or some groups, right, you can start po with your respective institutions, right? When I say start with parenting program, at least twice a year. When I say twice a year, every 2 quarters, there must be a parenting seminar. Usually they invite me before the card giving. I mean, actual card giving. So 8 in the morning, I'll have a talk, and then after which they will give the cards. Why? They want me to prepare the parents in receiving the cards of their children. They want me to re-educate parents regarding our concept of grades. Because in the Philippines, we know that grades are usually equated with the intelligence or the learning of the students, which should not be. That's why the theory of Gardner should be reiterated or should be told to parents, so they will know that if their children are not good in math, for example, but if their children are good in dancing or, in spatial intelligence, that's also intelligence. But parents need to be reminded, re-educated. And then what else? Teachers, okay. Again, I want you to think about your institution. What are the programs that are in place? What are the programs that need to be instituted? Then that's where you start. But again, needs assessment, and then these are the needs. How are the needs going to be met? Okay, and then what things that you're going to do, the programs of meeting the needs there. When I say needs assessment of the stakeholders, so students, teachers, parents, there should be, that's why I started with a Mental Health Act, right, or law. There has to be this in every institution. You have to start, right? So as simple as like there might be a time for coffee break and everyone should have this brown bag thing, right? We do this, kumustahan. Every Friday in UP before we had this Zumba. So there. But what about kumustahan as in how are you doing? How can we help? Is there a counselor on duty? Or can you refer your troubled teachers to an expert? Some usually ask for payment. Some, they do it for free. So you go wherever you want, right? Depending on your capacity to pay, right? But I'm also doing this, we can start this, right? Basic counseling skills for teachers. It's like psychological first aid for teachers. Usually 1 or 2 sessions in UP, 8 to 12 usually, and then they're all for free. I even give certificates for them. So they'll know what to do with their students, as simple as answering the question, Mom, I don't like my parents. I don't like to go to school. Then what are you going to do? How much more if you are bombarded with this question, Mom, I'm being raped. How are you going to answer? Because in the Philippines, no, we say linyahan. Counseling is linyahan. This is a question, then what are you going to say? That's very, very important. Your tone, the choices of words. So if somebody said, I'm raped, and then what's the usual question? What's the usual answer? I usually post this question to my graduate students, so to test what they will answer. And then some would say, that happened to you? Have you told the police? Have you told your parents? Are those questions or linya correct? No. Usually we say, would you like to tell me more about it? Because sometimes the rape victims don't like someone telling them what to do. They just want somebody to listen first of what had happened to them. So there. So we can start. We can do it, right? Actually, next month, I'm going to have basic counseling skills for teachers. It's for free. You may join my class. Okay? So you'll know what to do even a bit, right? Again, you are teacher-counselors. You are functioning as a guidance counselor. And we need you in the field. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I think there's a lineup of questions here asking you to be invited or asking, things like this. So it's really true that we teachers and also parents need to be capacitated because we are at the front lines facing our students. So thank you very much to all the questions as well. Perhaps you may have time to answer a few of them or through email. So now at this point, we would like to present the certificate of commendation to our certificate of recognition. So this reads, the certificate of recognition is awarded to Lorelei Binluan for her invaluable contribution as plenary speaker at the second DOST-SEI Project STAR International Conference with the theme Innovations, Challenges, and Transformations in STEM Education, Moving Forward in a Post-Pandemic World, held from November 16 to 18, 2021. Assigned Josette T. Billo, PhD, Director. So thank you very much, ma'am, again.
Welcome po. Most welcome.
Okay. So at this point, we would like to have some reminders. We shall have a 15-minute health break. So once again, exhibit halls will be open. And for some reminders, after this announcement, you may leave the session. And to transfer to the paper presentation, just choose from the paper presentations room 1 to 7 and then click join. The schedule of paper presentations and list of papers per room can be found in the souvenir program, which may also be downloaded at the menu tab. So again, thank you to all the participants. We are taking time to digest everything that Dr. Binluan has been sharing with us, that true enough, we need to have that mindset. And we need to have those positive characteristics and strategies that you have shared with us. So thank you very much, Dr. Binluan. So there are a number of thank yous here in the chat box.
Thank you.
Okay.
Answer po. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Okay po.
So we should have a health break at this point.